Welcome to another episode of the Stuck in My Room podcast. Today I have guest Benjo Agustin of Arrow in the Quiver. How's it going, man?
Pretty chill, man. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How's things been in quarantine for you? What have you been up to?
To be honest, actually, it's a bit hectic. A lot of work, hectic at work, and just try to get my mind off it when I'm not at work. So just do a lot of stuff around it, like I skateboard a lot, just to sweat it out, but being smart about it, social distancing and all that stuff. But yeah, all in all, though, pretty well. Yeah, how are you? How was your
Awesome.
quarantine?
It's going all right. I'm, not going crazy yet. I've pretty much been working on this. A lot of my time's been going into this. So, when I'm not recording an episode, I'm usually booking a guest or I'm like writing out questions or reformatting, stuff like that. And that's kept me busy. So I've been doing all right.
Yeah, you figured it out, so that's sick.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's just jump right into the questions then.
For sure.
Cool. When did you first discover your love for music?
Um, for me, like discovery, well, I mean, I grew up in as I guess, and as everybody would say in your podcast, in a musical home, kind of, but nothing like kind of like notable achievements with like my parents or grandparents or anything like that. But like it's like me playing around with my cousins and running over my grandparents' collection of vinyls, or like opening it up and you will see like Beatles records all over, or my dad would like blast out like Bee Gees randomly in his like homemade sound system, because he's an all around handyman too. So he does like low speakers when I was young, and he would just blast out like music and all that. As a young kid, actually, I when I was in school, like I grew up in a very traditional kind of Christian Filipino family, and I was in a choir too in the church, and a lot of activities in school. Basically, my sister was like my parents got her to sing on like what do you call it, like contests in school. And believe it or not, I was actually dancing. I was into dancing. I was into dance when I was younger, and yeah, that's how I should say, like I kind of opened up with like music. I always knew it's gonna be around. So yeah.
Awesome. And what were a few of your go-to bands when you were growing up?
Um, Two bands for sure. Like, dude, Pantera. That's most definitely. Slipknot. When I was young, I had this uh, collection of cassette tapes actually, and I completed like albums from like the very first like Slipknot album, Green Day album, until like um, the later years actually. I have all the Korn albums, Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine,
Lot of new
and
metal stuff.
yeah, yeah, a lot of that. It was actually just growing up in like the scene where like back home in the Philippines, looking up with like artists like Greyhounds, Slapshot, and Cheese, which translated into Queso later on. There's a lot of that kind of sound actually, and also just even like in my local town, Point Click Hill, kind of like a merging of like genres, if I should say. Like they put a little bit of reggae into it and like hip hop and all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of that kind of sound when I grew up. So
Cool. That's
yeah.
awesome. Was there a specific artist or musician that made you want to get into metal vocals?
Metal vocals, yeah, that was a funny one. As I was saying, because when I was young, I was doing a lot of like different activities at school, and I remember I think I was like kind of like 7 years old or 8 years old, and on a weekend, and we don't have school on Saturdays, and I would sleep in, and then just one weekend I remember, my neighbor is a bit older than me, and then he kind of like um, I was just kind of like woken up with this noise, basically, if I should say it. And I was like, what the hell is that? And I was just excuse me. I was just trying to figure out what that was, and he was kind of blasting like heavy music, and that's my introduction kind of with that. And sure enough, later in the day, I barged into his house, and I knew later on that it was actually Pantera, if I remember specifically. Um, the Mouth of War, I think that was the song. I think that was the one that in the Headbangers Ball tape that they had, or Headbangers Ball 2,
Yeah.
I believe. And I was like, this is kind of like like my kind of like go to. I kind of felt like, because there's a lot of like angst in there and a lot of attitude, you know. So I was like kind of like identifying myself to it.
Hmm.
But specifically with like with like the vocals. The same name, my same neighbor actually, because as I said, he's a bit older than me, and he was in a band, and I was kind of like trying to figure out um, like the mechanics of it, and he was singing to it, and I was looking up to him, you know,
Yeah.
and also the like the same kind of like timeline, I believe. One of his bandmates came through, and they were watching some videos when I came to their house, just like to play around or whatever.
Hmm.
And they were playing. They played a video, actually, and I remember it was Woodstock '99, and I remember seeing a guy on a skirt. I called it a skirt, a kilt, basically, and I was like,
Yeah.
what is this guy doing? And title popped up, and the song was Faggot, and it was sure enough it was Corn, you know. And
Hmm.
I was like, I don't know, it was just something in me that I just said to myself, I was like, I want to be that guy, kind of like, I guess different in a way, but then at the same time kind of like a lot of emotions. Excuse me. But yeah, a lot of emotions when he's like playing, um like um a lot of anger or anguish when you hear him scream, especially in that song. And I was like blown out of my mind, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So it really kind of started me into it, and like dug deep into like the rabbit hole of heavier music, I should say. And it's when my the collection of cassette tapes came in, and I guess in a more summarized words, my own pursuit of like my musical journey, like trying to get into like bands, like trying to get into people with the same mindset as me.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I would say that was the trigger, I guess.
So in 2016, your band Arrow and the Quiver formed.
Mhm.
How did you guys meet, and what made you decide on the Arrow and the Quiver name?
Ah, so with the Arrow and the Quiver history, actually, I think I put it in our bio, which is in the internet right now, kind of like vaguely, but getting more into it, I would say, um, when I first moved here, and excuse me, when I first moved, well, basically when I was in the Philippines, I was into like a couple of bands with my friends and all that, and um, basically leaving that kind of scene, you know, and moving into a different country for me. Um, when I first moved here in Canada, I didn't know anybody.
Hmm.
Didn't know like musically at least, or the scene, if you call it. Like back home, I would go into like regularly into gigs, into shows, into like different pubs and bars and all that, and knowing all those people at the same community as what we have now. But back then, when I just moved here, I didn't know anybody, and so I basically just kind of uh, dove myself into like skateboarding, because that's I don't need anybody. I don't need band members with that. Or
Hmm.
um, I started working at McDonald's, just for as a transitional job, going to my career that I have now. Going to school with that too. Um, and my first paycheck, I got a skateboard, and I just skated for like a couple years basically. But then when I was working, I saw this guy in in my workplace, and I thought like, man, this guy, I would say, um, he would be listening to the same stuff that I would, just the way he was dressed up, you know. And um, it's kind of weird how I identified that one. But sure enough, we became friends. But and then I got him linked up in the Facebook actually, or and then just casual friends, and then I kind of saw him posting a video of him playing in a band, and just this is me a few years after moving from a different country with like a different scene, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned earlier, and I basically just miss it. I just basically miss the feeling of like being in the community, listening to the stuff that you actually like are into, And I just asked him straight up, like, shameless, like, I asked him, like, hey, man, let me know when your next jam is, and I'm just gonna hitch in and just listen actually and
Mm-hmm.
get the vibe off of it and just, like, again, because I miss it. And he was like, yeah, right, yeah, for sure. But it actually never came through. But that same guy actually hit me up, like months after, and he was like, well, apparently that guy's in a band. In a band. That's the one that he was playing with. And later on, after that interaction, he actually hit me up and he said, "Yo, man, you want to start a project band?" And I said I was down, and I was actually so giddy about it. I was so excited and like, yeah, I'm able to sing, and these are my influences, which are the bands that I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool. And then he said his piece, and then he said, let's try to find some members. And he found this brothers actually, which is Ralph, which is our drummer now, and Edgar, his brother, which is our lead guitar player.
Okay.
Um, they were in a band too on their own, but kind of like going through some stuff. Maybe I'm not quite sure, but not as active as like getting as much shows. So he got those two brothers in, and I was thinking I don't know anybody in the scene, so I got a homie of mine who I was skating with, who I know that plays bass. So um, that first meeting came through, and he actually named that friend of mine named the band Messiah Fist. Actually, was the first name, and we did our first session kind of just to start the ball rolling. We decided to play some like cover or um, and we kind of played some songs, and we also played some songs from the old bands of the old band of the brothers, which is Unwritten Scriptures, I believe is the name. And yeah, so after the first session, we talked to the guy talked to us, which is the same homie that I was talking about
Mm-hmm.
earlier, kind of like started the whole project band. And he said he couldn't do it because he wanted to focus on his main band basically. So that's what he said. I'm not sure if he's not feeling some of the vibe there, but yeah, so he focused on that. But basically, what happened was the rest of us basically decided to like stand up on our own, and so it became Arrow and the Quiver. That was us, the first lineup. Um, and I was actually kind of like laughing about it because like, oh, this is kind of like Lamb of God or Pantera because I got the brothers in the band and all that. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, so after that, my mindset was like, okay, so at first the intention was like the project band, right? From my homie's band, and then the brothers has their own band too. My mindset, I always wanted to like get like kind of like a different identity, kind of not to be under the shadow of I mean, nothing against them, but to be on our own identity, kind of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were down for it, kind of like mentioned, like a different kind of name for the band. So, everybody threw in like other names, and I believe Ralph said he wanted something about like war themed, and I think he came up with like a name, something like um, pen. The pen as my bullet or something like that. And I think I came up with like bite the bullet, and I remember, oh, there's a band that's bite my bullet. And I threw up the name Arrow and the Quiver actually because around that time I was about to be interviewed by my to work basically, and one of my friends told me like, "Hey man, try to research up like this facility's kind of like mission and vision, and it's gonna be like kind of another arrow in your quiver." And I was like, "That's it," you know, and it's if you look it up, it's basically kind of like a battle metaphor, basically. Um, just like kind of like an aid to getting that goal or achieving that objective. So it's kind of like you being ready. And when I threw that one in, and they were like, "Ooh, that kind of sounds cool." So yeah, we stuck to it.
Awesome. And years later, you guys put out an album called Alpha. That was back in 2019.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your writing process, your recording process? How did that all go?
Again, just in connection with the story that I was telling earlier, the band that Ralph and Ed was in, Unwritten Scriptures, they had like a bunch of songs already, and actually the first show that we played, I believe, that was in Peacock Bar in Surrey, I
I
believe.
remember that place. I remember
Yeah,
going there when it was Olympia.
yeah, Olympia. Then it switched to Peacock for quite a bit, and then I'm not sure, but I don't think they do play the live band anymore there. But I was under Chicken Star Productions. Shout out to Joan Frias. He, she got us in, and I remember playing songs from just the songs that unwritten scriptures have, kind of like just to get us in because we didn't have like any songs yet,
Hmm.
basically, and we kind of played it their way, and with the in connection to the alpha, actually, what stuck out to us after that first show, as time goes by, we started writing our own music,
Hmm.
and but the very first one actually that stuck out with us is "In Your Hands," is actually one of unwritten scripture songs, and we kind of like um, got it started with that. We talked together and we said like, you know what, let's with unwritten scripture song, this one is pretty heavy. Let's make it heavier, kind of like put our own rendition to it, and make it our own basically. And that was the first song of uh, Aaron the Quiver that was made. And we started the ball rolling with like the writing of the songs. With the writing process, actually, everyone writes in the band. Just in regards to the Alpha album, a lot of it, lyrically at least, uh, I wrote maybe like 3 songs out of it. With Carpe Diem, was the inspiration with that. It's actually written my wrists over here, and it has been my kind of like omen, kind of my everyday kind of like go to, where it's just like, whatever happens, just seize the day, and I
Yeah.
kind of wrote some stuff to it, and we would go around one of the boys' house and just kind of like find like, oh, this guy put a riff on it or something, and as I said, everybody writes in the band. We have this dynamic where Ralph and Ed are brothers, so they have this kind of like edge of like connecting with just each other more than anybody else, and even sometimes would come up with like, we have a song, and then would just come up and they have a full song done, or um, Ramon would come up with like a riff, or I would come up with like a poem that I wrote, and okay, give me a riff with this kind of like, if you could make me a riff kind of like angry or something like that, it would come in, or um, Christian would come up with like a bass line even, and then we would grow from that. And with I think Wolfpack, the inspiration with Wolfpack was that there was a little bit of conflict actually that time, like, oh, not conflict, but like an argument with like something, and I was like, this kind of sick. I always thought of I was always in awe of how a band was performing still I was young. When I mentioned to you the first time I encountered it is like how this five or how many members do you have come up in go in one place, different personalities, and would budge their head together, but would come up with like a piece, a musical piece, a masterpiece basically, and that always boggled my mind. Like, and I kind of wrote that lyrically, inspired by that. Like, there's a certain compromise to it that you have to meet in the middle to at least like to get that goal basically. So that was Wolfpack, and I said in your hands. Resilience was one of the songs actually that an example of the brothers' products. Ralph wrote the lyrics in lieu with like with that what's happening back home, especially in the Philippines that time with the typhoon Haiyan, and it was crazy, man. A lot of people have lost their houses, families, and livelihood and all that, and we were devastated. I was here at school there, and we even tried to like do a fundraising. Like we tried to bake some cupcakes and all that. So, but basically it was heavy, and the resilience was wrote kind of in contrast with like how with like the strength of how people would like stand up after the storm. You know, whatever storm you'd go through in life, you know, just be strong and be resilient with it. And yes, and same thing. Ralph also and Edgar wrote Passion too. It's just kind of like inspired, I believe he said. Um, it's just kind of like a helping hand, you know. There's when you're like down at the bottom, somebody would like grab you and pull you up, you know. And I think it
Hmm.
was inspired by the movie Passion of the Christ. Actually, not a lot of people know it, but um, with that note, even there's like kind of like a biblical perspective to it, and even in your hands too. So yeah, yeah, that's pretty much the roundup of the album Alpha.
And I know things have probably slowed down a little bit due to COVID, but do you guys
Yeah,
have anything in the works right now?
always, man, always. As everybody would say, like if you have the kind of like dead time down hours, it's always your head is just running, and always new stuff is coming. But kind of like I don't know if like I said earlier, just for me, at least personally, it's a bit hectic at work right now, and with all the COVID stuff is happening, and um, when I try to get my head out of it, I try to like go out and skate, and uh, but on top of that, just like writing stuff as much as I can, and also the boys soon. At the same time, just like it was a different kind of like roundup for us, like just in regards to like the writing process. For example, um, a lot of it has been like um, how I said the dynamics was earlier, how we write songs, but now, I mean, later on after that, we will meet up in the studio, kind of, and kind of like jam it, and it's always the feel for us, like if it feels right, okay, we should change this one up. If it feels right, we'll keep it that way, and that's basically how we make the songs out of it.
Yeah.
But um, with this in perspective, everything was put on hold. We have some tunes written up, but haven't got like the chance to like come up to like jam it and try to feel it out. So we've been banking some stuff, and then we're pretty excited to have it kind of like um, cooked up for everybody. And but right at this very moment, like nothing concrete basically, but new stuff are coming up. So yeah, just watch out, I guess. It was just kind of like this. I think it was just this past month kind of that they started kind of like opening up the studios and all with like the precautions and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were able to come in like a couple of sessions, and yeah, we were even able to film like a drum playthrough with that I put out on YouTube with one of the songs Passion actually with Ralph, um, and yeah, with that kind of like feel and it's just us making the most out of what we have, you know. And excited to dive into well, the new stuff actually. Yeah.
Over the years, you guys have played quite a few shows. Are there any shows that really stand out to you, and are there any fun show stories or tour stories that you can share?
Stories. I mean, I still consider ourselves pretty young, kind of like babies in the industry. Kind of we've yet to play like shows pretty far. Like the farthest we've had actually is was Kelowna. That was our first out of town show.
Was that at
Uh,
Munins?
was that?
Was that out at Munins?
No, it was at Fernando's actually. Um, our friends from Ugly actually they were able to play here at a show, and I think we played with them, and they were just like the coolest homies, you know. Quinn and the boys, Balin, and they were just like, "Yo, man, you gotta go to Kelowna," and we were just like, "Dude, we're down. Just let us know." And sure enough, they hit us up like, I think earlier at the start of the year when 2020 started, they started hitting us up and like let's make the show happen, you know. And I think around February it came through. Just before all this happened, it's just pretty sick. And um, just in regards to like the tour stories that you were saying, it actually is standing out to me too because a lot of circumstances happened that time because like again we were super excited because it's our very first out of town show, you know.
Yeah.
And but uh, one of the boys actually specifically was Ed, our lead guitar player, was is not able to come in because he has exams. He's actually in the nursing school right now, so kind of like the hectic part. So I was there, and um, I know how it feels like, you know, like just with the cramming and all that stuff. So he wasn't able to pull through. He can't come on that show, but again, we were so excited because it's our first out of town show, so we can't say no.
Yeah.
Um, so we went on, you know, we just kind of like um, packed ourselves and kind of like compose ourselves for what's ahead, and then we planned it out pretty well. And there's actually one song I remember that this is before coming going there, and I kind of thought this just one of the new songs that we played that um, there's a distinct part where um, Ed was doing a solo to it, and with all this, I don't know if it sounds pretty weird, but like you could check it out on YouTube. I actually put a little like tour video in there, and it's pretty funny. Like I was like, this is gonna be so, you know, there's a lot of gap because there's no solo part. And I actually asked one of our friends, Arto, he's running this page, shout out to him. He's running this page, What's Up Rockers. But yeah, I asked him like, yo, you wanna come through? Just like, you know, have fun and all that, like go in the van and because we have to rent out a van to go to Kelowna.
Yeah.
And he was down, and I was like the day before, I was like, yo, can you write a verse or something? Because in the song, in that new song, it's called Pride Kills. Actually, I was my approach to it was kind of like, believe it or not, a little bit of like rapping to it. I don't know if you've heard it yet, but we played it in a couple of shows, and it's that part where like Edgar is doing like a little bit of solo to it, and well, he's not coming, so it's not coming through in that part. It's gonna be very blank. So I was like, write a verse because I know he's rapping or he's doing some lyrical stuff. And I asked him like, I'm gonna call you up, and then it was all impromptu. We didn't like rehearse it or anything, and you could see it in the Pride Kills. He would roll up and pick up the mic, and he would actually spit a verse where Edgar is supposed to play a solo part.
Okay.
And man, people were just like they went crazy. Like he was just like rapping, and like after his verse, he kind of like front flipped in the stage, and dude, the show went crazy. Yeah, I mean like just check it out on YouTube. Shameless plug-in. It's yeah, Iron the Quiver, and just you could check it out over there. But yeah, it's actually one of the shows that stood up with us, even if the lineup wasn't complete. It was the first time I was crowd surfing. You know, like the people in Kelowna are crazy, man. Shout out to them. Like Definitely not gonna be our last. And yeah, I think well, because we don't have much, we weren't able to tour yet, you know. So, but yeah, looking forward to more stories. That's for sure.
Awesome. And keeping to the topic of touring, if you could tour with any band, who would it be? I'll
Uh,
give you five bands. You can choose five bands to tour with.
oh man, that's hard. Yeah, for sure. Most definitely, some of our friends. It's I've learned along the way that's things are always good when you have your friends around, you know. And just shout out to them also. Our brother bands also are actually the guy that I was talking about who was kind of like wanted to start the project band.
Mm-hmm.
His band is actually Ozawar, which is the connection now. And our friends from all year long. If we were able to tour with those guys, that would be we would create havoc. That's for sure. It's gonna be crazy. But on top of those two bands, just the local legends. That's for sure. Uh, like Truant,
It's a good guys.
and those guys are just awesome. Like they're just gnarly up on stage. You know, they'd rip you in half,
Mm-hmm.
but off stage, they're like flip the coin, man. Like they're the craziest dudes, the nicest dudes too. And uh, I get well. I mean, I would say I would put it in one umbrella, I guess, with Truant, like just the whoever like the local legends, like Neck of the Woods, which is by the way like got out like a really good album, the new one,
Mm-hmm.
um, with all those stuff. And but just thinking of like bigger bands, like ones that we look up to, like you know that would be sick if we could tour with, like you know, or even not, yeah, tour, even just like open up for them, like the Devil Wears Prada or something like that, Under Oath, you know, um like a hardcore show would be sick too. Like hardcore, I've always looked up to like the hardcore scene too. Like um I've been really binging to this band called Kublai Khan from Texas. Those guys, I don't know, Beartooth, uh, Knock Loose, I guess, or Counterparts. Any of those guys, you know, that would be really sick. And just on top of that, just like I'm just thinking of like the vibe off stage. It seems like those guys are super cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So hopefully, man, we'll
Uh,
get there.
nice, nice. And just to finish things off, is there anything you'd like to plug or talk about that we haven't covered yet?
Um, well, as I've said, right at this very moment, there's nothing concrete, like the in the future for the band actually are in the Quiver, but um, I guess just have just have your eyes peeled, you know, watch out for things to come. Just put out the drum playthrough and in YouTube. Well, people could check out the YouTube also, which is Iron the Quiver. They could look it up. And um, yeah, just on top of my head, is pretty much it. Check out Alpha, I guess. They could have a quick listen to it. They could download it. They could buy it if they want to spare a couple dimes with it. Um, the best actually it's all over the online platforms that you can think of. Spotify, it's all there. And it's easy, if it's easier, you can check out the Facebook Aaron the Quiver. When you scroll down, there's like a link that I posted, like a smart Earl, where it's like a link of all the sites that our music is in, so they can listen to that one up. Yeah, but excited for what's to come. That's for sure. Just people to watch out. Yeah,
Awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
yeah, for sure, man. No, thank you so much for the opportunity, and hope to meet you soon. That's for sure.